See if the newest card in Marvel Snap will finally move the meta, as I hereby summon all my imps to join me on my adventures through Marvel Snap. Hey everybody, it's Annabelle. So we got a brand new card this week, and that card is Nocturne. Nocturne is the daughter of Nightcrawler and his wife Scarlet Witch, who is also his teammate. She is from an alternate timeline. In her world, she grew up with a very different kind of X-Men, as Professor X had retired and left Wolverine and Nightcrawler as the leaders of the X-Men. She was intensively trained to become a capable superhero. She soon became a hardened veteran and highly trained second-generation mutant for the X-Men. Nocturne for a long time lived in her father's shadow, who trained her very hard, often at the expense of her own feelings, until one day something went wrong with the past of her original timeline, and Nightcrawler was killed by the Hellfire Club by his own mother, Mystique. Thus, she should now be erased from time, since this event would make her birth impossible. However, she somehow got unstuck from time. Nocturne, after finding this out and wanting to exist, joined up with a group called the Exiles. This is a group that comes from fractured or destroyed timelines. This is where she met Blink. This group tries to rectify any anomalies it can find that can wreck lives or destroy whole timelines. While she does want to fix her own timeline, she has never assumed any kind of leadership role and still holds on to her free-wielding attitude. Nocturne is a very carefree and well-adjusted being. She is lighthearted, very open, and energetic. Some of this energy is used for the X-Men, some of it is used for her private life, and some of it is used for her rock band, the Butt Monkeys. Underneath her amused dialogue and killer combat skills, however, she has a big heart. She is such a lover as much as she is a fighter. She tends to feel very strongly about people she loves and never forgets those that she has lost. Nocturne is a very unique person. Her teleportation ability, balance, flexibility, and ability to cling to surfaces with her hands and feet come from her dad, Nightcrawler. She also possesses the ability to fire energy bolts thanks to her mom, the Scarlet Witch. This ability allows her to release concussive bolts of explosive energy. These hex bolts can alter the probability in a location, changing what can happen there. Nocturne is the child of Nightcrawler and Scarlet Witch, and has the combination of those two powers. This is represented in Marvel Snap by her having the ability to move once, like her dad, and have the ability to change the location she's put into, like her mom. So in Marvel Snap, what Nocturne does is she's a 3-cost, 5-power that says whenever you move her, she can move once per game by herself without any activators. But whenever you move her, whether it's the first time, second time, 12th time, wherever space she moves to is replaced with a new location that will not be the location that it used to be. So when I was looking through Nocturne and I was trying to come up with her star rating, I bounced all over the board. At one point I had her at 2, at one point I had her at 4, at one point I had her at 5. But when I finally came down to it and looked at everything and went over everything, the star rating that I came up with her was 4. And I'm going to explain a little bit why I came up with the 4 rating when all was said and done. So first of all, we got to look at her closest counterpart, the card that comes closest to her in Marvel Snap right now. And that card happens to be Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a card that has the same power, same energy, and roughly the same ability. And roughly the same downside of it. Spider-Man will move once per game, and sometimes he can move into a location that you don't want him to move into, or sometimes he can take somebody and move him into a location you don't want him to. And sometimes he can go into a location that you do want him to, or take somebody into a location that you do want them to. Spider-Man in no way is a bad card. Spider-Man is a pretty good card. So just a 3/5 on its own is a pretty good card. Now what brings her down is sadly the two cards that make her up. So the first card that makes her up is the Nightcrawler. So if you look at the Nightcrawler, the first time that you can play her, assuming you don't do anything weird or unusual, is on turn 3. So that means the first time that you can move her is on turn 4. This is when her mom's ability takes over, the Scarlet Witch, and changes the location. So if that happens, the first time that you can really play into a location is on turn 5. So let's just go, for example, and say that the first location is Sanctum Sanctorum. We all hate Sanctum Sanctorum. You can't play into Sanctum Sanctorum. So first time you can play down Nocturne is on 3. First time you can move her into Sanctum Sanctorum is 4. And then first time you can play is going to be as the 5. So it really only open up a location for you, even if you get her in your opening hand on turn 5. Now, even with this happening, there are some interesting things that you can look into with this. First of all, we got to look at this card this is the saddest for, which is Rhino. If you look at Rhino, Rhino is a 3/3 that destroys a location. 3 is a 3/5 that basically changes a location or destroys a location. People have not played Rhino in a while. 2 more points on Rhino might not make her do anything interesting or unique. But the other card you gotta look at is to Jeff. So this is the other card that you gotta kind of look at, is the Jeff card. Jeff has the ability to move to any location. So when you look at it kind of like a Jeff, the Jeff can change a Sanctum Sanctorum. It can change a Death's Domain. It can change a Deep Space. There's no location other than Professor X that she can't change. So because of this, you can sometimes get into a situation where you have like a magic down on the board. Either your own magic down on the board, and you're basically threatening your opponent the entire time saying, hey, am I going to blow up this limbo? Or your opponent might have it up and you might sit there and go, okay, I'm going to blow up your limbo, or I could blow up your limbo. Same thing happens with the Stormwind. With as much as she moves, you have some great synergy with stuff like Miles Morales, where Miles Morales will definitely be a 1 just because she moves on her own. Now, just so that you're aware of how she works, if she moves a second time at all, like for something like, say, Doctor Strange, she will still change the location even if you've already moved her once. And if she moves from something like Doctor Strange before you move her, she'll still have the ability to move. Now, a card that is kind of interesting with this is the Professor X with this. I have a deck that I'm going to show you in a second that I think works well with the Professor X. And another card that you kind of want to look at times, and the synergy that you want to look at times, is synergies like Cerebro. Any deck that really requires all 3 locations to be up, or has a good location like Onslaught Citadel, where you get double the ongoing. If your opponent's playing ongoing, well, you can just take the Nocturne and basically wipe out that location. Or if you're playing something like Cerebro and you get a bad location, you can flip into that location and hopefully make it a better location for you. Another card that you need to look at is times is, of course, the Angela. Anytime you can play down on Angela and then move out of Angela, you're giving her more power. Now, this is the deck that I came up with, Nocturne. I don't know if anybody else has come up with this deck, but I thought it was kind of interesting deck to come up with. So in this deck that I came up with, Nocturne, I have the 3 cards that really make Nocturne shine. I've got Nightcrawler, Jeff, and Nocturne. So the whole idea is on turn 1, you play the Nightcrawler, on turn 2, you play the Jeff, and on turn 3, you play the Nocturne. And just on that alone, gives you 10 points of power that you can move whenever you feel like. Now, in the best case scenario, on turn 4, you would play the Daredevil and you would play the Kingpin. And then on turn 5, you'd look in the 3 locations because Daredevil will let you see what's going on, and you'd lock down the location that you're winning at with the Professor X. And then on turn 6, you just play the Cannonball, and you basically win the game. Also on turn 5, you could move one of the other cards with Professor X, just so that way on turn 6, you can both play the Cannonball and the Miles Morales and really slam down on this. This also gives you the ability of having magic in the game, in case you don't get anything soon enough. You have Kingpin in here and Kraven to move into to give that power spike. And you have Magneto to kind of bring it home. Don't know if this is a good deck. I'm hoping somebody looks at this deck and goes, okay, it's a nice starting shell, but I had this idea for this deck of using Nightcrawler, Jeff, and Nocturne all on the same deck, and just having 10 points of power that you can move at any point and just make people cry. And if you move them all to Kraven, that's another 6 points. So that's 16 points of power on top of Kraven. So that's an 18 power lane that can just show out of nowhere. Thought it was kind of an interesting deck. Okay, so other than Nocturne for this week, we've got Kyra. Now, Kyra has really taken a hit. Ever since she came out, she really has not found a home. It's really hard for the 1s and the 6s to really be played anymore. Ever since, like, Thanos has gone down, and this has moved out of the Thanos deck, 1s aren't good enough for Kyra to protect, and 6s, you're not going to have a chance to have maybe more than 1 6 on the board, maybe 2 6s on the board. There are some decks where she is a real powerhouse. There are certain games where you'll play Kyra, and your opponent won't realize that you play Kyra because they haven't seen her in a while, and they'll just play a Shang-Chi right on top of your Red Hulk and lose a game, and you'll giggle. The other card in this week is the Selene. Selene does not have a home anymore. She doesn't have a place anymore. She really doesn't do anything anymore. Her whole big trick is to try to play her with some form of goblins and do either a red goblin or a green goblin. But she's, ever since she got changed from being a negative to being a positive, she's really gone down. So for this particular cache, you're really hoping for the Nocturne. To the point where you might either wait to get the Nocturne, or just, if you have the tokens, spend it on the Nocturne. Because Kyra needs a whole deck to run around her, and Selene just really doesn't have a place right now. And especially with Annihilus being able to kick it right back at you, makes it a really awkward card. I, on the other hand, will roll on this cache because I make content. So let's find out what's in the box. What's in the box? Let's all find what's in the box. Oh my, yes! We got big old Red Hulk. So on this Friday, I'm going to play a Red Hulk deck. I'm going to try to make that work, and I'm going to enjoy it just a little bit. Anyways, I want to thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember, play for fun.